I found a scam email. $12,000, I'm going to get you to work for that money.
He's created the perfect persona of a victim.
We've kidnapped this guy. We're taking him to the outskirts of Amsterdam. We're going to collect the money.
To see the opportunity slip out of their hands, it must be really infuriating.
My name is Mr Pricky. I engage with internet scammers, waste their time, and have a lot of fun doing so. I've never wanted to be part of mainstream society. That bloke that looks forward to his weekends and his dreary holiday in someone else's misery in Spain each year, where every night puts his towel on the lounger so he can be first place next to the pool in the morning.
Straight away, Mr Pricky seems like a very intriguing character for me as a psychiatrist, and I think he also probably is a thrill seeker.
I moved to become a civil servant with the Ministry of Defence. Back at work in the early 2000s, a fax arrived from West Africa, supposedly from a prince who was offering us millions of dollars. I was infuriated. These characters, I found them despicable, that they were trying to cheat ordinary, innocent people. A couple of years later, I was listening to the radio and there was a guy on there talking about this community in UK who thwarted advance fee fraud scammers by replying to their emails and pretending to be real prospective victims. And I listened to this and I thought, this sounds really interesting. I found a scam email in one of my inboxes, somebody pretending to be a Dr. Chief Edward Canes, Director of Procurement for the Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria. He had been involved in an over-invoiced contract. There is a surplus amount of cash that was allocated for the contract which wasn't spent, and it's now sat in an account. And he said he had control of that account and the $12 million. He was looking for someone in the West who would agree to work with him and launder these $12 million from this account into their own account and keep 40% of the money and give him the remaining 60%. I'm going to have some fun with you, Dr. Chief Canes. I replied to him, pretending to be a naive, gullible, elderly man with a bit of cash in the bank.
He's created the perfect persona of a victim. Somebody who's elderly, who's gullible, and who has money. He's almost used the scammer's greed against him.
So I generally drop into my emails or my phone calls words like shares, stocks, lump sum retirement, in order to give them an idea about how lucrative you would be as a real victim.
How scams like this work is like the scammer is almost going fishing. So he'll send out hundreds of emails knowing that only a very small proportion will actually be responded to. And he's looking for somebody that's vulnerable, that's probably a bit naive, and that has funds. So when Mr Pricky creates this false persona, he feels like he's caught this big fish and he's trying to reel him in.
He wanted me to be available by phone whenever he rang. If I wasn't there, the next time he spoke with me, he would be indignant and angry. I was meek and humble and polite.
The scammer has this sense of urgency, knowing that there's a risk that Mr Pricky might pull out. He's trying to assert his dominance increasingly so that finally, when they do get to the conversation about money, he can try and extract as much as possible.
Surprise, surprise, he'd found out it wasn't going to be straightforward, and I needed to pay $12,000 in order for him to transfer these $12 million into my account. $12,000, I'm going to get you to work for that money. Using another email address, I copy-pasted the emails the scammer was sending me into this fake scammer's email, sent them back to the scammer and said in Nigerian pidgin, I'm already working this man. I'm inside his email box. I've hacked his email. Here is the email you sent him yesterday. Keep away, or I will send juju to you and kill you. He was on the phone so quickly, there were friction marks on his keypad. And he said, Mr Pricky, your email has been hacked. You must open a new email account now. He was panicked because he thought a fellow scammer was going to chop his dollars. That's how they call it. I thought, great, he's bought in now.
Now the scammer knows that he's only got a very short period of time to convince Mr Pricky to send over the money before somebody else does.
I used another email account, pretending it was new, emailed him and said, Chief, don't worry, here's a new email account. How do you want me to send the money? He said, right, here's the information, send it now. I went completely silent. I didn't take his calls, I didn't answer his emails. And the next day he rang me, panicked, and I picked up and he said, where have you been? Where's the money? I said, I've sent it. He said, well, where? I said, I sent it to the bank account in Ghana you sent me. He went mad. He said, what do you mean, bank account in Ghana? I said, I've got your email here. He said, send it to me now. So I forwarded him an email from this fake scammer I'd invented saying, Mr Pricky, this is Chief Canes. There's been a change of plan. You're to transfer the money to this account in Accra, Ghana. When he got it, his head must have exploded.
It takes so much time and effort that their target is gold dust. So to lose something like that, to see the opportunity slip out of their hands, it must be really infuriating.
He called me. He said, you idiot, this was the scammer. I haven't got a bank account in Ghana. He went absolutely mad because he thought this fellow scammer had stolen $12,000 from him. What this did, besides giving me an enormous laugh, was that he believed that I had money, that I would send money, and another scammer was intervening and trying to steal money. He came up with a brainwave, and the brainwave for me was just orgasmic. He said, can you travel to Amsterdam? I have some officials there, and you can give them the money in cash. I know you've got to send the money again, Mr Pricky, but this is $12 million, and you're going to get 40% of it. I knew there is a fantastic live webcam in central Amsterdam, and I thought, I'll go along with that. I found a website that generates fake airline boarding passes, and I sent him these 2 boarding passes saying, look, I'm coming to Amsterdam, I'll meet your men the next morning. Here's where I'm staying. And I said, wait around here for me, right in view of the camera. And this scammer turned up and waited for me on this live webcam on this phone, trying to get hold of me. I pretended I was there, and every 20 minutes we had this cycle of him saying, where are you? And me saying, I've just come all the way down these 3 flights of stairs with my walking stick and I couldn't see you. I'm back up, where are you? I kept him on the hook like this in and out for about an hour and a half.
Can you see me?
Yes, you have fur trim on your hood. Your anorak, you have a hood with fur on it. Brown fur.
Good, yeah.
I'm coming now.
Eventually he got so fed up, he left. I then had the scammer in Nigeria, Chief Canes, on the phone to me, desperate. And he then had to mediate between me and his friends in Amsterdam who had just had enough. The next day, he persuaded them to come back. I thought, what am I going to do today? I got one of my Nigerian baiting friends to come in a conference call with me and speak with the scammer. I played car noises in the background with a soundboard. And I said, I'm in the car, I'm with your rep now. And then my Nigerian friend spoke with him and said, we've kidnapped this guy. We hacked his email, we hacked his computer, we knew this was happening. We're taking him to the outskirts of Amsterdam, we're going to collect the money. And put the phone down. I left it for about an hour and then called him back, almost crying, they mugged me, they've beaten me, they took my money. He said, have they taken all of it?
This shows complete lack of empathy, a complete lack of conscience or guilt, which is very typical for a scammer. So it really shows that we need to be careful interacting with people like this, because there's almost no lengths they won't get to try and get their money.
So I said, they took 9,000, but I had 3,000 in my sock, I've still got some money. He said, where are you? So I got my Dutch friend to come on the phone and start speaking in Dutch initially, and said, oh, he's at such and such a landmark. He's here now, this poor man, he's cut, he's bleeding. He sent his scammers in Amsterdam all the way to this area in the suburbs of the city to find me, and of course I wasn't there. He still believed I had money, and he eventually persuaded his scamming friend in Manchester to travel to Loo in Cornwall to meet me. Canes had changed the fee from $12,000 to £12,000, so of course I agreed.
The kind of cognitive processes that we're seeing the scammer go through remind me of gambling addiction. Sometimes a gambler has invested so much money in a bet that even when the odds are stacked against them, they just feel compelled to see it through. That's what we're seeing here. This scammer has put in so much effort. He's already invested so much, he wants to see it through to the bitter end.
He said, listen, package that cash up safely. I said, I certainly will. I don't want to tell him I've been baiting him, but when he gets home, there isn't going to be a large amount of cash in this package. And this is really important. One thing we scam baiters never do is educate the scammer. Because if we do that, they're going to improve what they do, and they're more likely to rob your grandmother blind next time round. I got one of my Nigerian baiting friends to type out a letter for me in Nigerian pidgin saying, we've beaten you again. This time we came to the victim's house this morning and told him that we were bank officials and that there was a lot of counterfeit money in circulation, and we needed to check the money he'd withdrawn from the bank the day before. One of us kept him occupied in the lounge, and the other went into his kitchen and swapped the money for this scrap cardboard. So I wrapped it all up. The guy from Manchester came all the way down. I gave him this package, shook his hand, and off he went with what he thought was a package of £12,000.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And there's been a lot of stress, but I'm glad it's over.
When he got back to his bedsit in Manchester, he began to try and open this package. Whenever a travelling scammer collects cash, he is instructed to video with his phone the opening of it. I had used 100 metres of tape from a pound shop to wrap this up. So he thought he was going to unpack it in a couple of minutes. And he spent about an hour opening it, I believe, and eventually got it open and found all of this scrap cardboard inside. And then he read the note to Canis. The level of fury and anger that came down that phone. I don't think I've ever experienced rage from anybody on that scale ever in my life. So it was twice he'd been turned over by this rival scam gang, and if he'd send somebody down the third time, that would be great. But he didn't. He walked away, and that was the last I heard from him. Despite what I did to him, this scammer in Nigeria was nobody's fault. He had good polished English. His emails were well put together. And in asking for such a large sum from me, $12,000, he was clearly confident.
Unfortunately, there's lots of different presentations and forms of con artists. So I think we always have to be on high alert. If something is too good to be true, then it probably is.
It was particularly pleasing that I managed to waste so much of his time.
This feeds into our sense of justice. We know that they're out hurting, financially ruining vulnerable people, so we like to see them get their comeuppance to a degree.
I like scam baiting for a few reasons. It ties up internet scammers and helps to keep them away from robbing your grandparents blind. But I think the main reason I am a scam baiter is because it's lots of fun.
I'm sure that there was a moralistic aspect to his actions, but also it seems to have very much amused him, and I don't blame him. Good job, Mr. Pricky.